Welcome to Eviliv3, the live media commentary show that answers the question, what exactly did they do with the Oklahoma kids singing the Moldy Peaches tape? I want to know what that recording is. Subscribe if you're new to the channel because today we are reviewing FX Networks' Justified City Primeval, Season 1, Episode 3, Backstabbers. That's right. All right, so the first time I watched this, I was super stoked on it. I watched it a second time, and a couple things started triggering in my head. We're going to go over those in just a second, but know that this is not as good as the last episode, but it's basically on par from the first episode. So, this is directed by John Avnet, written by Isa Davis and Chris Provenzano? I don't care. And it aired July 25th, this past July 25th, whatever day that is, Wednesday, I don't know. The synopsis is, Raylan and the Detroit police round up some promising suspects, provoking Carolyn's ire. Mansell and Sandy move on the Arabian mark. Things with Willa reach a breaking point. And they indeed do. So I want to talk about Willa and her father, Raylan, really quick, because that's the heart of this series. Well, you know what? I'm going to put a pin in that, because I want to talk about perceptions of this series. Watching the original Justified series was basically just watching a Western. And it felt like a Western, and it felt good, like really, really good in that Western genre vibe. This series, however, being the sort of sequel series to Justified, codified by the nomenclature of Justified City Primeval, it's more of a film noir series than a Western series. And as soon as you can wrap your head around that, I think you're going to appreciate this series more than if you go into it thinking it's going to be another Western like the first one was. It's not. And it really hammers it home with the music and the lighting in this particular episode that it is in fact going for that film noir view. Now, film noir is something that sort of broke out in the 20s to 40s. It's just a genre of novella and film that's based around the idea of detectives and a damsel in distress coming to, ask them to help with some sort of problem, and the detective gets wrapped up in some sort of mischief with crime and this damsel and sometimes an ex-lover, sometimes a business partner, etc. But it's just lighting, style, mood. That's film noir. And that's very much what they're doing with this. And I can appreciate that because I love film noir. Just the genre, I think, is really fun. I just didn't expect it when I think of Justified. And so it took me a couple episodes to sort of get over and understand. Now that I'm there, okay, I'm locked in. All right, let's talk about Willa and Raylan because, again, heart of the series, and it's immediately relatable to me because I have a daughter that's 14, which is what Willa is supposed to be in this series. My biggest complaint is that Willa does not talk like a 14-year-old at all. She talks like a 16 to 18-year-old. And that's a big problem because when you have a 14-year-old talking like an 18-year-old, your suspension of disbelief goes thrown out the window. Like you just cannot believe she's as young as she is supposed to be, which changes the entire dynamic of understanding between Raylan and his daughter. And again, it's a big deal. It may not seem that way to the writers. It may not bother some people who don't have kids and don't understand the difference between a 14-year-old, 16-year-old, and 18-year-old when it comes to dialogue and interaction. But it's dramatic. And it sort of bothers me because I see it every day. That being said, Willa does not want to leave her father. She sees him for what he is. She accepts him for who and what he is. But maybe even because of that, she wants to be with him even more, knowing even that they're in danger, that this Oklahoma kid is a genuine threat to the health and welfare of both of them. She would rather be by her father's side than sent back home to Kentucky to her mother. And I wish I had that. I would like to think that I have that, but I don't think my daughter would prefer to be around me, even though I'd like it. It's endearing. It's touching. They have this really great back and forth where she doesn't feel like her father sees her as a part of his life because he's trying to offload her to the family. Now, of course, he's doing this for her safety, for obvious reasons. And she brings up this point of, look, if you really wanted me here, you would find a way to keep me safe. But life isn't black and white like that. It's not just, well, I want it to be true, so figure out a way to make it that. That's not how it works. The truth is dangerous situations, especially in his business, in his industry, reach out to the entire family, as we saw in the last episode. No matter how safe you may think you're being. I mean, she was literally supposed to be locked up in a hotel room, and Oklahoma Kid found her anyway. And so if he is incapable of keeping her safe, the only option is her health and welfare, and that's getting her out of town, because that's the only way he can for sure make sure that she's safe. And so he's sending her back, and they have this really great back and forth between that, you're a part of my life. How could you ever ask me if I don't think that you're a part of my life? And she's like, how do you think it feels asking that question? And they're both, eyes are glossing over and, tearing up, and I'm getting wrapped up emotionally into it, sort of living my own life vicariously through this on screen. And at the very end of the series, she is at the airport. He's ready to send her off, and she makes her final plea, please, I want to stay here. At the very beginning of this series, he said, hey, let's go to Graceland. And she's like, no, I don't want to. I don't like Graceland. Hey, Horrified Pockets, how you doing, man? This, what's this series all about then? It's dope. It's not as good as the original Justified series, but it's awesome. It's about a U.S. Marshal who gets into trouble, basically. But so she makes her final impassioned plea to stay in town with him. And she even says, look, let's go to Graceland. Let's go on a road trip. Let's do all the things that you wanted to do that I didn't want to do, because I'd rather do things that I don't want to do with you than do anything without you. And it's so goddamn endearing that it's just me on the couch welling up in my eyes, just like trying not to breathe so I don't like bumble out any words because I'm getting all emotionally caught up. And then his phone rings. And again, it's at the very end of the episode, but the phone rings and they found some travesty that we're going to learn about that I think we can speculate about at this point. And so he takes the call and she gets on the plane and walks away, seeing that he's obviously choosing his work over her. Devastating, just devastating for him to not focus on the woman right in front of him, the young lady, his daughter. There's nothing more important than family. And you can always find another job. You can always deal with the repercussions later. But she's right in front of you, literally begging you to include her in your life, and you turn your back. I can't abide that. It just hurt so much to watch. And it makes me constantly question everything that I do in relation to my relationship with my daughter. Ugh. So now let's talk about the episode here. So the last episode, Oklahoma Kid Clement Mansell approached Raylan's daughter to provoke him to attack him so that he could then use that attack as some sort of defense against Raylan as being this violent cop type. And it would influence any sort of case that the DPD put out against Clement. Because, of course, it's police abuse, and, he wasn't even charged with anything, and the detective still beat him senseless. And so we open up at the judge's house, Carolyn Wilder, not the judge, the defense attorney. And so he drives up to the defense attorney's house and just rocking his music really loud, just showing what a badass he can be because he can do whatever he wants and he doesn't have to answer to anyone. That's the character we're being introduced to with him. And so the defense attorney comes out and Carolyn's like, look, turn the damn music down. What the hell are you doing here? And he's like, look, you told Raylan to stay away from me. Look what he did to my face. He beat me senseless. And she's like, why did he do that? And he's like, because I went and I talked to his daughter and I bought her some chicken fingers and she liked him. She's like, why would you go talk to a U.S. Marshal's daughter who's investigating you? Are you stupid? That's the worst choice you could ever do. And he's like, we better get some pictures of this before it gets too late. And he starts to walk in her house and she puts her hand on his chest. She's like, you're not coming to my house. You come to my office in the morning. We have boundaries. And he sort of has that dead eye look at her. He's like, as a viewer, we know he's crazy and we know that he can just off the drop a dime murder someone for no other reason than just being upset, just sort of being frustrated. So we're sitting here watching this going, wait a second, is he going to kill his own attorney? Like, what the hell is going on? But he ends up backing off, throwing a cigarette down and walking away, knowing that he needs her ultimately, and he can't just kill every problem because clearly it's going to catch up with him. She is his way out of jail for killing the judge. Again, on the drop of a dime, didn't intend to do it, was not premeditated. It was just the judge was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he was pissed. And so the whole DPD is investigating that judge's murder, which leads them to them. They had already tailed his girlfriend, Sandy, and then ultimately they bring Sandy, they bring Clement, and they bring Marcus Sweetie Sweeten, the bar owner, in, knowing that somehow they're all related to the murder of this judge. They don't know that the gun was stashed in Sweeten's place, but they go and raid his place anyway, destroying the entire bar, looking for the gun and not able to find it. Sandy doesn't say shit. Clement doesn't say shit. Sweetie doesn't say shit. But ultimately, Clement's like, hey, look, I'll tell you everything you want to know. Just give me a tape recorder. So he goes and hunts down a tape recorder because he's sitting in the police department in an office, little interrogation room. Finally finds one, brings it over. He's like, I appreciate it took you so long to get it. And he starts singing The Moldy Peaches, which is weird, but it's just funny because, that line, I can see that we are going to be friends. He's clearly looking through the two-way or the one-way mirror, looking at Raylan, saying that. And this is sort of reinforcing the idea that this entire series is about the Oklahoma kid, Clement, v. Raylan, the U.S. Marshal. That's the whole setup and premise of this. The DPD, the Detroit Police Department, is just sort of a backdrop. Detroit is just a backdrop. But it's these two facing off head-to-head, two seemingly immovable forces facing each other. One of them has to move. Throwing a cigarette down, that's an evil character right there. First of all, nowadays, just smoking one it makes you an evil character. But definitely like throwing it out after she said, don't throw that down in my yard. He's like, I do what I want. And he walks off. Clement is like this whiny, annoying guy that he's a guy I've known my whole life. I've met guys like this over and over and over again throughout every version of my life. In high school, after high school, in the Army, after the Army, in college, in my professional life. I've run into assholes like this who think that they do not have to adhere to any rules at all. They can do whatever they want. And in some cases, they are actually criminals and they've done time. So this is not a new character or something that I can't believe because it's so absurd. No, I know people like that. So they're assholes, and that's just how they roll. Like they don't listen to anyone. They don't care about anyone. It's almost sociopathic levels. Without, in his case, he is a full sociopath. But the people I know, they aren't quite there yet. Maybe they'll get there in time. Everyone needs something to aspire to, right? But so they bring them in, interrogate them, can't get anything out of them. It turns out that Sweetie had actually taken the gun that Sandy had stored in his bar without his knowledge, and he hid it so that he could then use it as leverage against Clement because he doesn't want to go down for the judge's murder. He had nothing to do with it. He didn't even know that they're going to stash the gun in his place. He's literally, in this particular case, an innocent bystander, and he's going to be dragged down if he doesn't do something about it. So he approaches the same attorney, and he's asking her, look, if, hypothetically, I have a murder weapon that's tied not only to the judge's death, but also the death of the 3 black men and 2 white men that Clement had been released on, like their murder, how could I get that to you and not go to jail for it? So she's like, look, let me talk to someone and we'll deal with it. And so it looks like he is going to then finally turn against Clement, though if history is any judge, their relationship being that history, I think he's probably going to end up going along with Clement in the end. But it's nice to see at this moment, he's thinking of his own survival, his own health and welfare, because again, self-preservation is the highest law here, people. So let's talk about Carolyn Wilder, the defense attorney. She is clearly in some sort of trouble with her past relationship. Now, we had seen that in a previous episode where her past relationship, I don't know if it was a boyfriend or a husband or what, but he's a criminal and he's trying to go clean. But she now has this massive lien on her taxes because of actions that he has taken. We don't know the full ins and outs of it yet, but we know that she, as an attorney, wants to go and be a judge. She's actually trying to apply to be an associate judge, and she sees a question saying, have you ever had a tax lien on you? And she can't fill out the application because, yeah, in fact, she has, and he hasn't taken care of it. So she has intimate relations with criminals. She's an attorney trying to do her best. And so she's telling Raylan as a U.S. Marshal, like, stay away from my client, because her client is the Oklahoma Wildman, Clement Mansell. And then Clement Mansell, she's like, look, you need to leave the damn Marshal alone. You're just making this harder for you. You're never going to get out of this alive. And then she's telling Marcus Sweetie, look, you bring in the gun. Let's get this cracker off of both of our lives and let's put him behind bars. She's telling U.S. Marshal, look, if you want to bring him down, bring him down. I get that you're angry. He stepped up and he crossed a line. But no one else gets to be angry in the way that you get to be angry. And just that line speaks volumes, because not only is she saying you as a U.S. Marshal get to behave in ways that us U.S. attorneys or us civilians can't engage in. You police get to abuse people unlike everyone else, because we would go to jail, but because you're a cop, you don't go to jail. That's not fair. You can't act like that. But also, you're a white person. You get to act ways that we, people of color, cannot act, because the repercussions that we have to face are different and more severe than the repercussions that you have to face. And it was just this great double entendre of comment in one line that just resounded loud and clear. I mean, we got the hit that this is going to be a series that featured racialism from the very first episode with the judge in that opening scene. So we get it. We know what we're in for. But seeing her say it without going overt, without going overboard, without calling him a cracker or a honky or just crying racism or something, just in one sly line, I think is arguably the best way to address racism or racialism in any context. It's not complaining about it. It's not whining and moaning about it overtly. It's pointing out obvious behavior differences and privileges that some people get and others don't. So you may watch that scene and not get any racialism from it at all, and that's okay. But if you do, it's just that extra layer of understanding of what this series is trying to say about not just the justice system, but about racism in America. I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm not like a huge, complainer and whiner when it comes to privilege or anything, and it may be because I'm a middle-class white guy. And I have the best of everything except for being wealthy. So maybe that's why I don't bitch about it. But I do see it. I do recognize it in the world. And so I like that at least it's being addressed, even in situations like drama. I just think it's great. They're just warming up. Yeah, maybe. Maybe. It could get worse. It could get much worse. And I'll let you know if it does. So I love the character of Carolyn Wilder. I love the dynamic that she has with Raylan and with Clement, because she's literally caught between a rock and a hard place. She has nowhere to go. She wants to be something she can't be. She's trying to serve the best interest of her, not just legal side of things, but also the fairness side of things. And there's no winning in that case. The dynamic between Raylan and his daughter is devastating, but Raylan is a workhorse. He only sees his job. And I can appreciate that focus. You have to have that focus if you're going to be successful in anything you do in life. Raylan takes that to sort of the upteenth level. He doesn't always play by the rules, which is why everyone loves him. He sort of flies by the seat of his own pants and gets in trouble a lot, which is why everyone kind of loves him. But he's also like almost believable as a character. Not like Clement and Raylan are two sides of the same coin. One's the bad guy, one's the good guy. They both kind of ignore the law when it's convenient. Clement always ignores it. But they also kind of try to work within the boundaries of the justice system when it's convenient. One is doing it for the ultimate better good, and the other one is doing it for themselves. And I love that dynamic. It just creates, we didn't really have that in the first Justified series. So in this version, in that noir framework, I think it works really well. Here's some things I didn't like about this. First, the daughter. The daughter's dialogue, as I already mentioned, it's not 14-year-old dialogue. It's 16 to 18-year-old dialogue. And so it breaks that believability boundary when you're watching it. The fact that two criminals would have the exact same attorney, I'm not sure I can buy that. I'm sure it happens, whatever, but it seems awfully convenient. I get maybe they didn't want to have to bring in another actor or actress, paying extra money for another person to do the exact same role. So they're like, hey, let's just distill them into the same character. Okay, but it's a little rough. The third story beat in this was that Clement and Sandy were going to shake down this Armenian guy who Sandy has sort of been working as a mark. He's supposed to be this wealthy hot dog owner, business owner, and he's supposed to have this secret room, presumably with a bunch of cash and stuff on hand. And so they want to shake him down. So Sandy's been working the edge of being his girlfriend and everything. He says he wants to marry her. And so she says, well, you have to meet my brother and get his blessing before we get married. Her supposed brother is, of course, her actual boyfriend, Clement. So they go and meet him. They get him wildly drunk. And Clement's not actually drinking it all. He's throwing it over his shoulder in that clearly, obviously fake scene that if you ever were watching it in real life, you would never fall for. But it always seems to work in every series in every series in film that's ever put it up as a situation. It's just ridiculous. Skinny jeans should be illegal. I agree. That's funny. And so he's like throwing the liquor behind him, acting like he's drinking it. And this Armenian guy is drinking and getting totally blown away drunk. And then he's like, hey, I want to propose to your sister here. Do I have your approval? And he's like, no, I want to see your secret room, which is the most unbelievable request ever. Like, I understand they're trying to frame it up like they're trying to lean on him to get into a secret room in any way they can. But it's so ham-fisted to be ridiculous. And this supposedly incredibly drunk Armenian guy gets in his Lamborghini, drives to his house without any problems, and then suddenly he's sober again. Like, the actor must have forgot that he was supposed to be drunk, or the director forgot to remind him, or the screenwriters and the writers on set didn't say anything. It was ridiculous. It was like he was knockout drunk, stumbling down 1 second. The next scene, cut to totally sober guy going to his house. Why did you have the whole drunk scene in the first place if you're not going to pay it off later? There's no reason for it. Okay, so they get to his place, see this sort of man cave secret room. They see a safe. They convince him to open the safe. Again, all of this is so ham-fisted to be completely unbelievable. Turns out he just is a gun collector. He has a whole bunch of rare guns. That's it. And Clement's super pissed because he was doing this entire charade on the hopes of getting some cash to get the hell out of town because, of course, the Detroit Police Department and a U.S. Marshal are up his asshole. And now he can't get out of town because he doesn't have any freaking money. And so he presumably blows the Armenian away with his own gun. We don't know because they cut the scene. And the next scene is, of course, Raylan at the airport and the police department calling him saying, hey, you got to get down here. We got a problem. So I'm assuming that's what that problem was. So the entire buildup of last episode of Clement building a case against Raylan in a preemptive attack of being charged with the murder of the judge fell by the wayside. And instead, they picked up this ridiculous Armenian story, which is wildly unbelievable. And now, clearly, we're going to have to deal with either a Clement in flight or a Clement trying to convince everyone he had nothing to do with this, when clearly he had something to do with it, because Raylan already knew that Sandy was involved with the Armenian because he had talked to the Armenian early in the episode. So this episode did not live up to the strength of the last episode. It's more like the first episode, which was a little off. I didn't really know how to handle it, and it was a little goofy and ridiculous. But I'm hanging in there because last episode was fucking great. It was great. And if they can do that again, then it'll make the entire series worthwhile. There's only 8 episodes, and we're 3 in. So that's, I don't know, by my count, 5 more. We can do this. Come on. Please, Justified. Don't fall down the trap of every other shitty TV series. Please. If you need help, look at the original Justified series. Lean on that, because that was gold. That's all you got to do. But don't do ham-fisted, boneheaded, ridiculous scenarios that no one will believe. And don't have a child speak as if she's a grown adult who has lived her life. It's ridiculous. Whoa. My computer just almost went to sleep. Holy shit. That was crazy. All right. That was weird. Sorry about that. Anyway, all that being said, I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 evil eyes. Just not great. Yes, Horrific Podcast, Colin, this is a different writer. The last episode was, I don't know, I don't have the notes with me right now. This one was written by Isa Davis and Chris Provenzano. Not the same quality. The direction of it, again, was much more film noir, which I really liked. So the director, John Avnet, did a great job. But the writers, I don't know, man. I think they shit the bed. It was very, very strange. Clement could have been Quidzin. I'm not sure what that means. He's never watched Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I love that, dude. I thought that was great. I don't remember the Skinny Jeans comment in that because it was years ago that I watched it, but I remember enjoying it a lot when I did see it. All right, so ultimately, the 3 evil eyes, the script, I didn't buy it. The relationship with Raylan and his daughter was great, though her dialogue, I didn't buy it. The contrivance between the now 3 criminals with 1 attorney and the DPD with Raylan is getting a little bit weird and convoluted. I'm hoping they can pull it out. I know I could sit down in a writer's room and figure it out. So I know if I could do it, then I know professional writers can do it. So let's hope, knock on wood, they spend the time to do it right. All right. That's all I had for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. And always remember, like it or not, evil spelled backwards is live. So get out there. Be evil.